What are a few of the dumbest crimes people will do because they somehow shut off their brains? Let's find out. Starting with number 5. Oops, I didn't know. Abdulkarim Altareb was apprehended at JFK Airport as he attempted to fly to Qatar with over $770,000 in cash. This cash was hidden within everyday items in his luggage, such as boxes of Alka-Seltzer, Theraflu, Dove soap, and even the soles of shoes. Customs officers at JFK Airport decided to investigate Altareb when his story about how much cash he was carrying didn't add up. He initially claimed to be carrying $6,500, which was under the $10,000 limit that requires declaration, but then only presented $5,870 when asked to show the cash, which is kind of a dumb lie, right? Why not just say how much you could easily show? Anyway, this inconsistency prompted officers to search his luggage, where they found $100 and $50 bills ingeniously hidden in various items, from boxes of Theraflu and Alka-Seltzer to the soles of sneakers and seasoning packets. So of course, the authorities are going to be like, what on earth? And have a few follow-up questions, like you'd expect, right? Well, apparently Altareb didn't expect to be questioned, so he offered his excuse he apparently made up right then. The money was for constructing a building in Yemen belonging to him and his family. Obviously, that's how most legitimate businesses move large amounts of cash, so despite his obviously true explanation, he faced serious charges of bulk cash smuggling and was held without bail. Authorities did note there was no evidence linking the funds to any activities linked to organized crime. Eventually, Abdulkarim Altareb was sentenced to just over 4 years in prison for his crimes. Throughout his trial, he continued to insist that the money was packed by his brother, because when you can't blame the dog, you blame your sibling, right? Of course, prosecutors dismissed his nonsense and described it as egregious perjury. It seems like Altareb didn't even try to pull off his crime. He just decided to show up and wing it, like a frat bro who didn't study for an exam. Seriously, how does someone go through all this trouble to cleverly hide that amount of money and then not have a backup plan just in case he's asked about it? We're starting to suspect that old Abdulkarim wasn't the brains of the operation. Number 4. Oops, I forgot. Muhamad Aziz, a senior Malaysia Airlines flight attendant from Selangor, Malaysia, was sentenced to a year in prison for his dumb attempt at money laundering. Caught at Heathrow Airport in London just before his flight back to Kuala Lumpur, customs officers discovered a staggering £150,000 in cash hidden in Aziz's luggage. This included £100,000 in his cabin bag and another $50,000 in his suit carrier. The funds were found after airport security, suspicious of the X-ray images, flagged his bags for further inspection. Initially, Aziz claimed the money was to fund a shopping spree at Harrods for designer handbags during his layover. However, this excuse quickly fell apart when receipts in his wallet indicated he had been shopping on London's High Street instead. High Street has a mix of shops, including both budget and mid-range retailers, rather than high-end boutiques like Harrods, found in Knightsbridge, which is similar to a place like Rodeo Drive. Adding to the ridiculousness of his excuses, since no one would be carrying that amount of cash in that way to just go shopping, Aziz added that post-flight fatigue had prevented him from making it to Harrods, suggesting instead that he ended up shopping closer to his accommodations. Aziz's story was so implausible that Ian Truby, the National Crime Agency's operations manager at Heathrow, described it as almost laughable. Truby pointed out that Aziz had exploited his knowledge of airport procedures as a cover for his criminal activities, acting as a cash courier for a criminal gang. And yes, corrupt flight attendants still pose a significant risk despite the obvious stereotype. They leverage their positions that result in lesser scrutiny at security checks to smuggle illegal things. Despite his modest salary as a flight attendant, Aziz lived a lifestyle far beyond his means, evidenced by his planned extravagant purchases. The cash he carried swabbed and tested positive for traces of nose beers. But don't most bills have that anyways? It seems like the overall theme here is maybe have some kind of story figured out if you're going to be asked why you're doing shady things. It's like Murphy's Law. If something can go wrong, it will. So plan for that. Or, better yet, just don't do illegal things. Number 3. Oops, I fell in love. In Jefferson County, Colorado, former Sheriff's Deputy Myra Lovato, 29, was involved in a scandal involving an inmate at the county jail. Lovato, a member of the jail's gang intelligence unit, initiated an unauthorized relationship with the ironically named Justice Espinoza, an inmate linked to a local gang. The relationship began in the fall when Lovato sought Espinoza's advice on managing gang tensions among female inmates, and love was in the air. Espinoza, leveraging the situation, began to charm Lovato, sharing food and compliments, which she initially resisted. However, within weeks, what started awkwardly soon felt normal to Lovato, who confessed she engaged in the relationship initially due to a lack of intimacy and admiration in her personal life. Despite knowing the risks, Lovato continued the relationship, but soon claimed she started fearing Espinoza could pose a threat to her and her family if she ended things. Communication between Lovato and Espinoza intensified, resulting in over 2,000 minutes of recorded phone conversations, including explicit exchanges. Their interactions included smooching and minor fondling, though they claimed it never escalated beyond that due to constant supervision in the facility. During this period, Lovato facilitated the smuggling of contraband to Espinoza, claiming she never inspected the items out of fear and obedience to instructions not to do so. The affair eventually came to light, leading to Lovato's arrest and subsequent charges, including introducing contraband into a correctional facility and official misconduct. Despite the severity of her actions, Lovato was released on a $50,000 bond. In court, she faced multiple charges, but ultimately pleaded guilty to a reduced count of introducing contraband and 2 counts of official misconduct. Her sentencing concluded with a 45-day jail term and 2 years of probation. What do you think, though? Was Lovato in all the way, or was she really worried for her safety? Number 2. Oops, I went broke? Former Milwaukee Brewers shortstop Yuniesky Betancourt is facing some serious charges in Miami-Dade County, Florida. Alongside 3 other people, Betancourt is accused of organizing a staged car accident to fraudulently claim insurance money from Chicago-based Kemper Insurance. Betancourt is charged with felony counts, including filing false insurance claims, staging an accident, and third-degree grand theft. Following an investigation by the Florida Department of Financial Services, it was revealed that over $60,000 was billed for unprovided therapy sessions, with Kemper paying out $22,800. Despite his past career earnings nearing $16 million, Betancourt's involvement in this scheme showcases a baffling lapse in judgment. Yuniesky Betancourt, originally from Cuba, had a respectable Major League Baseball career spanning 9 seasons. During his time with the Brewers, especially in 2011, Betancourt shined in the playoffs, significantly contributing to the team's first division title since 1982. However, his post-MLB life took a drastic turn, leading to his current legal troubles. Betancourt appeared in court and was released on a $4,500 bond as of the release of this video. If convicted, he faces up to 10 years in prison. His descent from a playoff hero to a defendant in a fraud case is a steep fall, highlighting a dramatic shift from his previous sports celebrity lifestyle. And we're not here to say that all scammers are broke and need money, but this dude made $16 million from playing baseball. So he either lost it all, loves crime, or is just really bored, because there's really no reason for him to scam. Even after his years as a pro, we're sure there's plenty of career opportunities for a former professional baseball player. But with antics like this, he should probably be an honorary member of the 2017 cheating Astros. If you're enjoying this video, be sure to stay right here to find out just how the TSA may steal from you. Number 1. Oops, you didn't know? In San Francisco, Aziza Graves was found guilty of a calculated shoplifting spree at the Target store in Stonestown Galleria in San Francisco. Over the course of 13 months, she made 120 visits, resulting in thefts totaling over $60,000. Graves' method was systematic and deceptive. She would pick up items, head to the self-checkout counters, and scan everything as if to pay. However, she tricked the system by by inserting just a single coin or a bill, then walking out seemingly after a legitimate purchase. This series of actions allowed her to amass a large haul over the months, which she later sold at the UN Plaza, less than a mile from City Hall. The place she was selling all her stuff is locally known as the Night Market. By day, it's a skate park, but at night, it sounds like it's something out of some weird sci-fi novel. It's basically where a bunch of junkies who stole a bunch of stuff sell it all for cheap, so it's not known for being a safe, happy place. Graves' thefts didn't go unnoticed. The San Francisco Police Department closely monitored her, and after multiple observations, they finally arrested her in November of 2021. Post-arrest, the District Attorney of San Francisco, Brooke Jenkins, labeled Graves as a major offender whose repeated thefts severely impacted the local retail environment. She explained that such bold thefts undermine the operational ability of businesses, both big and small, affecting their service to the community. Graves was found guilty of 1 felony count of grand theft and 53 misdemeanor counts of petty theft. Although she was initially out of custody, she faces the possibility of up to 3.5 years in prison, with options ranging from full custody to mental health rehabilitation programs. And mental health rehab is something she might need, because Graves seems like she might just really be that delusional. When confronted by some reporters in regards to her thefts, she gave them this huge, convoluted explanation that she wrote out, explaining how using 100% of a penny is essentially paying for 100% of what she owes. It was a weird logic, but she seems like she really believes it, and seems to genuinely think she didn't need to be on trial. Or maybe she's just pulling a fast one over everyone. These criminals just couldn't wait to steal from innocent people. Let's get right to it, starting with number 6, a model scam. Fashion model Annie Dutt stole credit card information and ripped off a bunch of chemist warehouses, an Australian discount pharmacy chain. Dutt, whose family fled war-torn South Sudan when he was 3, was scouted while hanging out with friends at a hotel in Sydney. By 2016, Dutt was signed with the prestigious Chadwick Models Agency. Dubbed South Sudan's 3rd most handsome man alive, Dutt worked for some of the world's biggest designers, such as Tommy Hilfiger, Camilla and Marc, and Jack London. Even though he was pretty successful, Dutt apparently felt like he needed a side hustle. Being paid to be good looking just wasn't enough. So he bought stolen credit card information from illegal websites that acted like a marketplace for people wanting to commit fraud. Once Dutt had the card information, he went on shopping sprees at various chemist warehouses locations in Sydney. After buying a bunch of whatever you'd buy at a discount pharmacy, off-brand desktop fans and cheap makeup probably, Dutt returned to the items and requested that the refunds go to his personal bank account rather than back onto the card. When Chemist Warehouse and Dutt's victims eventually figured out they were being scammed, they contacted law enforcement. Investigators found security camera footage of Dutt making the purchases and arrested him. Police seized Dutt's cell phone, where he had a tab open for ccvstore.net, a website that sells credit card information, including the numbers, expiration dates, and CVV numbers. They also uncovered that he shared at least 6 of the 19 card numbers he'd acquired with a third party. But buying and selling credit cards from the dark web was far from the only crime he committed. In 2013, Dutt was convicted of assault. Then, in 2016, his license was suspended for driving under the influence. He temporarily lost the ability to drive again in 2020 after getting behind the wheel with that suspended license. And around the same time he was scamming Chemist Warehouse, Dutt was also accused of throwing a glass bottle at Janea Capablanca, the mother of their young daughter. Police were sent to Dutt's apartment late at night when 2 men were fighting in the street. Officers found Dutt with his shirt ripped open, and not in a hot model kind of way, but in a fighty kind of way. And Oliver DeVerge, Janea's godfather, who was bleeding profusely from a gash on his forehead. The fight started when DeVerge was at dinner with Janea's mom when she got a phone call from her daughter because Dutt had thrown the bottle at her. So the pair rushed into a taxi to go pick up Janea and the baby, but were greeted by Dutt once they arrived. Dutt was acting belligerent, shoved Janea's mom out of the way, and began to pummel DeVerge, leaving a scar on his forehead. Dutt claimed to not have started the fight, but has since pleaded guilty to the charge. For his credit card fraud, was remorseful in court and told reporters that he already paid back the money he stole and apologized to his victims. He was charged with multiple counts of dealing with identity information to commit an indictable offense. Sounds like he wasn't exactly a model citizen. Number 5. She'll be back soon. Donald Felix Zampak posed as his deceased mother for over 30 years after she passed, so he could receive her Social Security payments and veteran benefits. Zampak's mother had passed away in 1990 in Japan, but rather than report her passing, he decided to assume his mother's identity. He forged her signature on benefit eligibility certificates, filed fraudulent federal income tax returns, and even maintained her bank accounts. Zampak also racked up credit card debts in her name. Zampak received roughly $830,000 of his mother's widow's pension from the Social Security Administration and an annuity from the Department of Defense Finance Accounting Service. The Department of Justice eventually grew suspicious of Zampak. When they questioned him, he attempted to convince investigators that his mother was still alive. Before his mother passed, Zampak had transferred her home to his name without her knowledge and used some of the money to pay off the mortgage on the San Diego house. Zampak also filed for bankruptcy, but didn't disclose that he owned the home. He also opened at least 9 credit cards in his mother's name and racked up more than $28,000 in debt. Zampak claimed to be very remorseful during his trial, which seems like a good place to show remorse, and accepted full responsibility for what he did. U.S. Attorney Randy Grossman said that his fraud was one of the district's longest running and largest of its kind, so whether or not the remorse was real is up for debate. Zampak was found guilty of money laundering and Social Security fraud. He faced 20 years in prison and a $500,000 fine for money laundering, and an additional 5 years in prison and a $250,000 fine for Social Security fraud. He also had to give back his mother's former property as restitution. The story would have been a lot more fun if he'd been dressing up like his mom too, in a sort of lighthearted psycho. Like a Weekend at Bernie's thing. Think of the hijinks. Number 4. The house always wins. Accountant Ben Carter defrauded clients out of millions of dollars to fund his gambling problem. Carter was the money man behind Australian beer brand Drink West, co-owned by rugby star Nathan Cleary and UFC fighter Tai Tuivasa. Carter's Sydney-based firm, Carter's Tax Advisory, rose to prominence during the COVID-19 pandemic. During that time, it won multiple local business awards, starred in local newspaper ads, and developed a solid social media presence. The company had even partnered with well-known establishments and organizations like the rugby team Penrith Panthers. In late 2009, the firm released a promotional video of Carter shaking hands with one of the team's executives. Carter's Tax Advisory promised to provide players and staff with financial advice. But rather than make elaborate purchases or fund a lavish lifestyle, Carter just dumped all the money into gambling. Almost all the cash went into his sports bet account, but not even the stolen money was enough to fund his gambling. Carter also added some of his salary, business funds, dividends, and loans to keep gambling. So he had to figure out how to get more. So Carter told many of his clients that they owed money in their taxes when they didn't. He also made his victims believe they wouldn't receive tax refunds so he could steal them without anyone noticing. Australia's Tax Practitioners Board opened an investigation into Carter's Tax Advisory after receiving reports of alleged fraud. After searching Carter's home and business, investigators uncovered massive amounts of evidence against him. So much that Carter just ended up admitting to some of the allegations. Investigators seized hard drives, documents, electronic devices, and a small amount of, let's just call it, nose beers. Court documents revealed that when Carter was chief financial officer for Drink West, he offered to buy $440,000 on behalf of an investor. But rather than invest it, Carter just kept the money. His girlfriend and office assistant, Amy Steele, attempted to help him cover his crimes, so she was arrested alongside Carter. A court had already convicted Carter of fraud in 2008 after he used his job as a bank teller to steal $30,000. Carter had potential connections with organized crime associations, so the court refused his bail over fears that members would help him flee overseas. Sportsbet also allegedly incentivized Carter's behavior by offering to match dollar for dollar any proceeds that he gambled. Despite concerns over Carter's ability to legally fund his gambling problem, Sportsbet gave him corporate box tickets, flew him to gambling events and paid for his accommodation. Carter sued the gambling organization for ignoring the concerning behaviors he was exhibiting when they reviewed him in 2021 and 2022. He was charged with 14 counts of dishonestly obtaining a financial advantage by deception, knowingly dealing with the proceeds of a crime, and possessing a prohibited substance. Steele, his girlfriend, was charged with dealing with the proceeds of a crime. Did Sportsbet do anything wrong in this scenario? Is it their job to make sure people aren't gambling too much? Or do they have a responsibility to manage their platform simply because gambling problems can lead to criminal behavior? Number 3. Trust me, I'm a celebrity. Alicia Newby stole several people's identities, including Empire actress Taraji P. Henson, and went on a modest spending spree. Newby hacked the Oscar and Emmy-nominated actress's email account, which she then raided for personal information like financial account data, phone numbers, and addresses. Newby made $12,000 in fraudulent transactions throughout her scam, although Henson's manager was able to recover $4,000. Newby also defrauded American Express, PayPal, JP Morgan Chase, and other companies in her scam, along with several other victims. Henson's manager noticed fraudulent charges on several of her accounts, which included online purchases with shipping addresses and names that the actress and her team didn't recognize. So, authorities conducted an almost year-long investigation before serving Newby a search warrant for her apartment. Investigators found items purchased in the scheme and seized several electronic devices. A few months before she was caught, a postal worker refused to deliver a package as she believed the shipping address had been used in an ID theft scam. Newby allegedly went after the worker, demanding she hand over the packages. She didn't want to get ripped off, you know. Police officers arrived at the scene, and their body cameras caught Newby's demands. She eventually received the packages after causing a scene at her local post office. Law enforcement lost track of Newby shortly after the incident when she moved out of her apartment, leaving thousands of dollars in damages and $4,000 in unpaid rent. Months later, she pawned a designer handbag using her actual ID, which was like a big giant spotlight for authorities. Newby was charged with one felony count of continuing a financial enterprise. They investigated Newby for a year over stealing $12,000 from a rich person who probably didn't even notice. Look, we're not saying what she did was okay, but that's barely out of small claims court, and the investigation probably cost twice that. If you're having any sort of legal issue, our advice is just to be rich. You'd be surprised how much it helps. Number 2. Scamcanic. A New York auto repair business owner, Ibrahim Tony Issa, got rich by running a postal truck repair scam. The owner of First Star Auto Repair had offices in the Bronx and shops in Florida, Texas, and Michigan. Sounds like he's Mr. Worldwide. In exchange for access to work repairing and maintaining the organization's fleet of postal service vehicles, Issa bribed USPS vehicle managers with vacations, fancy dinners, and gifts. Issa's team worked on the USPS trucks and returned them with shoddy repairs or no repairs at all. He made $30 million in 1 year, having billed the USPS for work that was either unnecessary or incomplete. Which is such a cliche mechanic thing to do though, right? Way to propagate mechanic stereotypes, Tony. Additionally, Issa conspired with others to evade paying federal income taxes for his businesses by misreporting expenses and income to the IRS. He signed false personal tax income reports and failed to pay hundreds of thousands in taxes. The Office of the Inspector General received complaints about Issa's shoddy work, so a couple vehicle managers had to go undercover to get him. But Issa was unaware and treated the undercover agents like he did all his accomplices. He took them out to extravagant dinners and bought them fancy gifts. He appeared before Manhattan federal court where he received 60 months in prison. Issa was also sentenced to 3 years of supervised release in order to pay the IRS $557,176 in restitution. What if they made a movie about the undercover guy dealing with Issa, but it's treated like he's working with the mafia or something? Like, there could be a scene where the wife is crying because the guy is in too deep with Issa, and it's like she doesn't even know him anymore as he slowly gets drawn into the seedy underworld of shoddy USPS truck repair. We're not saying we've already got a draft nearly complete, or that it's something that would pretty much guarantee Michael Keaton, Amy Adams, and Tom Hardy the Oscars they should have had by now. Just saying. Number 1. TSA means taking stuff again? former TSA officer, Piteous Brown, stole over $800,000 of items from luggage and security checkpoints over 4 years. Brown worked at Newark Liberty International Airport and admitted that his job made it extremely easy for him to steal. Despite the TSA's zero-tolerance policy for theft, the agency still fired almost 400 officers for stealing from passengers between 2003 and 2012. Although there were overhead surveillance cameras over the ticket counters to prevent thefts, they weren't always turned on. Brown typically worked alone and knew when the cameras weren't working. He also learned how to read X-ray scans to look for valuable items to steal: cameras, laptops, and other electronics. At the end of each shift, Brown would leave the checkpoint with the day's stolen goods and put them on eBay to sell. When he was arrested, Brown had 80 cameras for sale on his page, as well as video games and computers. After serving time for his 4-year stealing spree, Brown went public with his operation and warned people that the TSA locks sold for luggage don't work. Apparently, TSA employees know how to pick them without detection. Really though, does anyone use those things thinking they're going to stop anyone that's not a toddler? Some guy's like, click, now my stuff is secure. If that was you, we're sorry, but don't rely on those things. They look like what you get out of those quarter machines or something. Brown blamed his actions on how the agency treated him as an employee. The low pay and poor morale made it too tempting and easy to steal. In July of 2023, 3 other TSA officers were arrested. Elizabeth Fuster, Labarius Williams, and Joshua Gonzalez worked at Miami International Airport. Surveillance footage captured the trio attempting to distract passengers during screenings to steal items from their luggage. Gonzalez and Fuster confessed to repeatedly stealing from travelers, taking an average of $1,000 a day. Footage also caught Williams and Gonzalez taking $600 from a passenger's wallet during the screening process. Many believe the TSA's lack of training and minimal experience requirements were the reasons for the issues. While transportation security officers are one of the last layers of protection against someone taking weapons or explosives on a plane, the requirements for the position are minimal. Transportation security officers only need a high school diploma or 1 year's experience as an X-ray technician, security industry professional, or aviation screener. Once they pass their substance screenings, background checks, and medical evaluations, they're on the front lines, screening 2.2 million passengers every day nationwide. The TSA released a statement about its no-tolerance policy for workplace misconduct and that arrests such as those of Brown, Gonzalez, Fuster, and Williams were rare occurrences. It doesn't sound like the thefts are rare though, does it? The agency also said that it performs screenings as required by the Aviation Security and Transportation Act. It recommended that flyers empty their pockets and place all valuables in carry-on bags. Why? So they don't have to look for your wallet? Whenever a company says they're doing the required this or that, it always comes off as really disingenuous though, doesn't it? Like they're screening employees because they have to, but they're put out about it. Brown said that there were so few anti-theft protocols in place that he left the checkpoint one day with a Nintendo Wii in hand. Public safety officials, however, have raised concerns about the fact that people who should be concentrating on travelers' safety are distracted by the prospect of stealing, which also feels really disingenuous. Oh, so you guys think that they should be doing their jobs instead of stealing? That's your big statement? Click to watch one of these next videos. Let us know in the comment section what you'd rather have to do. Live in China for 5 years or go to jail for a month.